The river erupted in chaos as a crocodile's jaws clamped down on a baby elephant's leg, terror ripping through the air. The mother charged, tusks ready, fighting for her child's life in a desperate battle beneath the swirling water. But what happened next will shock even those who thought they'd seen everything. But first, let's go back to the beginning. Sarah's eyes traced every movement along the shimmering river's edge, the golden light of late afternoon casting long shadows on the dusty earth. The air was heavy with the scent of wet soil and wild grass, punctuated by distant bird calls, a chorus of life undisturbed. For now, Ellie's massive frame moved with a grace that belied her size, her mottled gray skin creased like ancient parchment, telling stories of countless seasons weathered. She stood sentinel beside Daisy, whose tiny trunk flailed excitedly, sending droplets scattering like diamonds across the surface of the water. The calf's innocence contrasted sharply with the hardened vigilance in Ellie's gaze, a silent promise of unwavering protection. Sarah's chest tightened with a familiar mix of awe and melancholy. Years of research had taught her that every peaceful moment was a fragile thread, easily unraveled by the capricious forces of the wild. She adjusted her binoculars, careful not to disturb the herd's delicate balance. The elephants were more than majestic creatures to her. They were a living testament to resilience, intelligence, and familial devotion. Ellie's every movement spoke of maternal instinct sharpened by an unspoken understanding of the dangers lurking beyond the sunlit horizon. The matriarch's motivation was primal, yet deeply layered. Ellie had survived droughts that thinned her ranks, escaped the shadow of poachers' guns, and led her family through seasons of scarcity. Daisy was not just her offspring. She was hope incarnate, a fragile spark kindled against the vast, indifferent expanse of the savannah. Ellie's eyes flicked towards the dense thicket where the river disappeared into shadows, her ears twitching subtly, sensing the unseen. Every muscle in her massive body was taut, a coiled readiness beneath the surface, calm. Sarah's own motivation was no less urgent. For years, she had dedicated herself to understanding and preserving this ecosystem, battling bureaucratic indifference and the relentless encroachment of human development. Today's tranquility was a balm to her weary spirit, a reminder that her efforts were not in vain. But she knew better than to mistake this calm for safety. Nature's equilibrium was a precarious dance, and today's serenity often preceded tomorrow's tempest. The air seemed to hold its breath. The soft rustle of leaves, the faint ripple of water, each sound a subtle thread in the tapestry of the moment. Sarah's fingers tightened around her notebook, ready to document the herd's behavior, but her mind was already alert to the slightest sign of change. Ellie's posture shifted imperceptibly, a subtle cue only an experienced observer could detect. Her trunk lifted briefly, nostrils flaring as she sniffed the breeze, alert to an invisible presence. Daisy, oblivious to her mother's tension, continued to splash joyfully, her playful trumpets filling the air with youthful exuberance. It was a scene Sarah wished could last forever, a sanctuary carved out of wildness and time. Yet beneath this tableau of maternal care and carefree innocence lay the pulse of impending conflict, a challenge that would soon test Ellie's strength and Sarah's resolve in ways neither could anticipate. For now, though, the savannah held its breath with them. The river flowed steady and calm, the grass whispered secrets to the wind, and Ellie stood steadfast, a guardian at the threshold of an unfolding story that promised danger, courage, and the unbreakable bonds of family. Sarah exhaled slowly, savoring the rare peace, knowing all too well that the fragile calm was but the eye of the storm yet to come. The river's placid surface shattered in an instant, a sudden ripple exploding like a gunshot across the sunlit water. From the depths, a shadow surged upward with lethal precision, sleek, muscular, a force shaped by millions of years of survival. The crocodile's massive jaws snapped shut around Daisy's leg, the sharp, serrated teeth sinking deep into soft flesh with a sickening finality. The baby elephant's startled trumpeting pierced the air, raw and panicked, fracturing the fragile peace that had wrapped the herd moments before. Ellie's massive frame tensed immediately, every muscle coiling like a spring. Her eyes widened, blazing with primal fury as the world contracted to a single, terrifying point, her baby caught in the grip of a merciless predator. A thunderous trumpet burst from her throat, a defiant war cry that shattered the stillness and galvanized the herd into motion. Panic rippled through the elephants, trumpeting and shuffling hooves clattering against dry earth, dust rising in thick clouds as the matriarch charged into the river without hesitation. Water exploded around Ellie's legs as she crashed forward, powerful and relentless. Her tusks, curved and gleaming, became weapons wielded by instinct and desperation, aimed at the crocodile's armored hide. The river churned into a maelstrom, a battlefield where nature's merciless law unfolded in brutal clarity. The crocodile, equally driven by the instinct to survive, tightened its grip, dragging Daisy deeper beneath the surface, its eyes cold and unyielding, fixed on its prey. This was a life-or-death contest, one fought not just for sustenance, but for the very continuation of a bloodline. Daisy's screams echoed in Sarah's ears, raw and heartbreaking. The baby's tiny body writhed helplessly, limbs flailing against the crushing jaws, tears mixing with river water as she struggled against the impossible force. Sarah's breath caught, a visceral ache rooting her to the spot. The protective distance she had maintained dissolved instantly, replaced by a piercing, primal fear. The sudden violence was a brutal betrayal of the serenity she had clung to, and the weight of helplessness pressed down with suffocating intensity. Ellie's tusks scraped viciously against the crocodile's scaly armor, the sounds of clashing bodies and tearing flesh filling the air. She heaved with raw power, leveraging her massive bulk in a desperate bid to pry the predator's jaws loose. Her trunk curled protectively around Daisy's body whenever the baby surfaced gasping for air, a fragile shield against the lurking menace. The struggle stretched on, violent and chaotic, the river's clear surface roiling into a turbulent whirlpool of limbs, teeth, and water. Every moment pulsed with harrowing uncertainty. Sarah's eyes burned with tears, watching helplessly as nature's cruelty played out before her. The crocodile's grip was relentless, its deathly jaws a vice that threatened to end the fragile thread of life dangling beneath the water. Ellie fought with the ferocity of a mother willing to face oblivion, but the scale of the danger was immense. The balance between predator and protector teetered on a razor's edge, and the outcome was anything but certain. The herd's trumpeting escalated into a cacophony of fear and desperation, a chorus of voices rallying against the nightmare unfolding in their midst. Yet even their combined strength felt powerless against the ancient, unyielding force beneath the water's surface. Sarah's heart hammered, each beat a painful reminder of the stakes, the terrifying fragility of life, exposed raw and unvarnished. In that moment, hope flickered like a fragile flame in a storm, threatened to be extinguished by the crushing weight of despair. Time seemed to fracture, seconds stretching into agonizing eternities. The river, once a place of calm and continuity, had transformed into an arena of survival, where every breath taken was borrowed from fate. Sarah's mind raced, torn between paralysis and the desperate urge to intervene, to somehow rewrite the brutal laws of the wild. But here, beneath the endless African sky, the raw power of nature reigned supreme, indifferent, merciless, and relentless. Ellie's eyes, wild and burning with fierce determination, locked onto the crocodile's glinting ones. The matriarch's breath came heavy, her body trembling with exertion and fear. The river's flow carried the echoes of battle, water splashing, bodies colliding, a symphony of life and death. Daisy whimpered softly, her tiny frame vulnerable yet unyielding, a beacon of fragile hope, caught in the jaws of relentless fate. Ellie's breath came in ragged gasps, each heaving exhale trembling with the weight of exhaustion and raw emotion. The heavy thud of her massive heart echoed in her ears, a relentless drumbeat fueled by a fierce, unyielding love. Around her, the river's surface, once a battlefield of violence and chaos, began to still, the dark waters swallowing the ripples as if retreating in defeat. The crocodile, stunned by the sudden surge of power, slipped back beneath the murky depths, its ruthless grip broken by Ellie's desperate resolve. Without hesitation, Ellie curled her trunk protectively around Daisy's fragile, trembling form. The baby elephant's small body shook violently, not from cold, but from shock and pain, her tiny breaths shallow and uneven. Ellie's every movement was deliberate and gentle, a stark contrast to the brutal struggle moments before. With careful precision born from instinct and love, she lifted Daisy from the river's edge, carrying her wounded child toward the safety of the grassy bank. The soft earth greeted their heavy steps as Ellie lowered Daisy down, positioning her where the wild grasses swayed, sheltering the little one from the harsh sun. Sarah stood rooted in place, eyes wide and overflowing with tears that blurred the world around her into a shimmering haze. The scene before her was raw and intimate, a testament to resilience carved by nature's unforgiving hand. She saw not just a mother and child reunited, but the embodiment of hope itself, a fragile, beating thread weaving through the tapestry of survival. The wild had threatened to sever that thread, but Ellie's indomitable spirit had reclaimed it. Sarah's throat tightened with a swelling ache, the bitter sweetness of the moment washing over her like a tidal wave. Daisy's tiny trunk twitched weakly as she nestled into Ellie's side, her breathing slowly evening out under the matriarch's vigilant care. Blood stained her leg where the crocodile's teeth had bitten deep, a harsh reminder of the narrow margin between life and death. Yet despite the wounds, Daisy's eyes held a flicker of recognition and relief, an unspoken bond that transcended pain and fear. Ellie's massive head bent low, her rough skin brushing softly against Daisy's, a silent vow of protection whispered in the language of touch. Around them, the rest of the herd had gathered cautiously, sensing the fragile peace that followed violence. Their trumpeting calls, once frantic and desperate, softened into a muted chorus of reassurance. The younger elephants edged closer, their eyes wide with curiosity and concern, while the older matriarchs stood sentinel, guardians of a lineage forged through countless trials. The air was thick with the raw scent of earth and water, mingling with the musk of wet skin and sweat, a tangible reminder of the life force pulsing through this small, sacred family. Sarah's heart pounded with a complex blend of sorrow and hope. She understood that the river, the crocodile, and Ellie's fierce maternal love were threads in the same relentless weave of nature's design. Each had fought with instinct sharpened by millennia, each driven by a survival imperative etched deep into their bones. Yet it was Ellie's willingness to confront death itself that had rewritten the outcome, transforming a scene of impending tragedy into one of miraculous reprieve. The weight of the moment settled heavily upon Sarah's shoulders. Years of study, countless hours observing the delicate dance of predator and prey, had led to this singular point in time, an intersection where instinct, emotion, and the immutable laws of the wild collided. She was acutely aware that hope was not a guarantee, but a fragile, precious gift born only from the fiercest battles. Ellie had embodied that hope, showing Sarah, and all who would witness this story, the extraordinary power of love to push beyond the limits of endurance. As Ellie remained motionless beside Daisy, the matriarch's eyes scanning the surrounding brush for any lingering threat, Sarah felt a deep reverence swell within her. This was more than survival. It was a profound testament to the enduring spirit that defines life in the wild, vulnerable, tenacious, and breathtakingly beautiful. In this moment, the brutal cycle of nature's challenge met the unbreakable bond between mother and child, and from that union emerged a quiet, fierce promise that despite darkness and danger, life finds a way to carry on. The sun dipped lower, casting long golden beams that filtered through the canopy and danced upon the river's surface. Ellie's silhouette, massive and resolute, stood as a living monument to resilience and love. Daisy's soft sobs faded into the gentle rustling of leaves, the wild embracing its own fragile miracle. Sarah wiped the tears from her cheeks, her heart heavy but full, knowing this story was not just about death narrowly avoided, but about the hope that burns brightest when all seems lost.